Yes, I started there on the second week. We're coming up to our 40th anniversary, so I've been there pretty much the whole time, every single market day. Right in the beginning, CWA Hall was open and there was food happening in there.
When I first started, they used to have the food inside the CWA Hall and all the locals, and it was a great meeting point. They'd all come in, they'd have bench seats.
Everybody sat in the CWA. We used to decorate the tables, tablecloths, flowers, made it really nice. And everybody sat in there and ate what they purchased at the stalls.
Probably half a dozen stalls just right outside the CWA Hall. Daryl made sandals. Krista was there somewhere with her pottery. And there was an artist there, T-shirt lady, and we were there with our plants and produce. So I had a little co-op going. There was a lot of organic growers in those days, and we all got together and they'd pile up here on a Friday afternoon with boxes of avocados and oranges, and I had all my herbs and my plants and just stuff everything to the back of the ute and off we'd go, basically. I had a beach umbrella, a couple of boxes and a table sitting on the boxes and a cloth over it, make it look nice.
How did you first hear about the market?
It was something Gail Perry and Krista Barton were talking about. We tried a couple of other markets in Nambour and various other spots, but it wasn't exciting, whereas I found Eumundi immediately really exciting because of the people there and who was involved. Yeah.
The only market that had been quite successful before then was Kin Market, and that was an awful long way from anywhere and quite difficult to get to.
My mother, having a history of village markets in England and Wales, thought it might be a good idea to have a market. So we started a market in 76 in Kin. And I don't know exactly how it happened, but Krista Barton came to the market in about 78-ish. And she thought it was great and a good concept, a good idea. And Krista had the idea that she'd like to start a market with Gail Perry in Eumundi. And so that was 79.
It was the days when the highway still went through Eumundi, so it got pretty hectic at times. And of course the railway went through the middle of town, so it was right in the middle of things. Friends who actually opened up a little part market on the other side of the road. What was an old building called the Eumundi Emporium, which was pretty much derelict. It had been a rig for a while. With a stall there, closed by about 1980 or 81. I'd moved over and started setting up a stall in the main market.
When it started, you did have an alternate element there, and like I said, you did have the people that sold the produce was sort of quite old Queenslanders. Like this was white Australia.
Local people came because they were all very straight in those days, farming orientated, or ran small businesses in town. Because Eumundi was a timber town and it was also a farming town. And it was just us hippies and artists that kind of helped to change it.
The original Eumundi Market for me was coming down and visiting family, and when you come to the coast, and everyone will tell you this today, go to the market. It was a Saturday morning in those days, in front of the hall on the main street, and to this day I can still remember the crafts that I saw at the time.
When we come up here for our holidays to see our auntie, we always had to be up here on Saturday so we could go to the market, because it was quite eye-opening. They were all hippies. They were really all, and some of them had the most weirdest hairdos. And there was one man, he had a stall down there, silver mobiles, but they were made out of old silver cutlery. Yeah, people like that really did make the markets different. I think you would say it was hobby. It was the things that they made. I know Krista Barton was there. She had the pottery, and Jenny Wagner was a child's author. It was there. She had the little tea house there. And that was clothing, of course.
I think I began at the market in probably 1980. Used to sell clothes out the front of the hall. There's probably a dozen stalls out the front, maybe a couple of vegetable stalls, but mainly a lot of clothing and arts. There has always been a lot of craft at the market.
Locals really drove the market to give it a foothold. It wasn't a tourist market at all.
It was pretty plain Jane, really. It was very basic. We used to, in the winter time, you'd have 44-gallon drums with wood in them, and you'd stand around the drums in the winter time. That was always nice.
remember in the very, very early days, I was coming up from Woombai down south of Nambour, and in winter it was so cold I'd be scraping ice off the windscreen before I set off, and it would be pitch dark, and you would be having to fight for a car spot on the road because you had to park on the road and unload quickly and take the car down the back, and you'd be dressed in all your warmest woolies and Ugg boots. Something that was a real haven in those days was going into the CWA hall early in the morning, and it was warm, and there were all these beautiful food stalls. There was the Thai food and a lady who did wonderful lasagna and someone who did beautiful pies. And once you'd sort of got your stall basically set up and you could go in and get something warm and delicious, was a lovely moment. Yes, it was tricky in the early days because it wasn't quite so well defined. I can remember some great cat fights between people who thought people were encroaching on their spot or moving too close or something. There was some wild scenes in the early days before it had become well organised.
I'm virtually the last in, which is fantastic. And if I had come in any earlier, I would throw the whole market out. Right, it's a timing thing. You've got to time it perfectly, or otherwise you get other market people giving you the evil eye, the stink eye.
The stallholders are the driving force. Basically, they come rain, hail or shine.
Most strong memories are when there was a cyclone on or some major event happening with the weather, you know, and you've got to hang on to your tent and hope to God you can get through on the way home and cross the creek and all that sort of thing.
With the ceramics, I remember one event that happened. It showed you how caring people and stallholders were in those days. I had a freak gust of wind because in those days we'd only just got tents. We set up in those days with umbrellas and tables because tents weren't, the pop-up marquees weren't invented in those days. And a big gust of wind came through and it knocked a whole all my table over. I'd unloaded a new kiln load of ceramics and the whole lot broke. The following week, one of the fellows from the committee came down and handed me $400 worth of gold coins. He'd been around the market and collected. The market had given me cash to try and cover my expenses that I'd lost that day, and I was so moved by that. It was just a beautiful gesture, but that just shows how close everyone was in those days. They were like family.
The pathways were nothing like they are today. They were just dirt, and if it rained, it turned to mud.
And we ended up having a stall behind the CWA hall on the back corner there. And it used to be so muddy sometimes because there's no surface on the thing, and people had to put the trestle tabletops on the floor to get the customers around that corner. And I remember the market manager was really cross because we had tabletops on the floor, but you couldn't walk in it. It was just mud. It was just awful. But, you know, that's what you did. You were in the mud and you got filthy by the end of the day. You didn't have a proper market canopy. It was just so different then.
I can still remember when Alan Templeton, the councillor, made all of the trestles, but he used the old the palings that he made his banana boxes out of. So you can imagine they were all rough sawn, and truly I never had so many splinters in all my life because Dad was setting up and I'd go in and help him set up the trestles for the stalls that were permanent and so forth. And the best thing that ever happened, we got rid of them.
You know, we would get some boards and some lumps of wood and make some sort of a trestle table, and that's just how it was. But nowadays, you just go to Bunnings and you buy a market blow mould table, and it's even called a market table.
One of my favourite memories is of Joe. Joe Wagner. His wife Jenny was a very good friend of Krista Barton and Gail Perry, and was very much a part of the original stall in the CWA hall. And Joe got lonely at home by himself, so he took it upon himself to come in and do the cleaning up of the rubbish. He probably did 4 rubbish bins. I do not know how many rubbish bins they empty now, but it certainly is not 4. When they decided to build a car park down the bottom, the powers that be decided that it should be locked and stallholders could come in at 6 o'clock in the morning. Now, that is ridiculous. Some people like to set their stalls up very early. Some of the fruit and veggie people used to set up early. So they had this nice little gate down there. You bet he went down there with the bolt cutters and cut it open and let them all in. So I think we got banned for a market for doing that.
We've only probably missed one from a cyclone, because where we live is a beautiful place right at the end of a valley, but the creek crosses the road in 3 kilometres 13 times. It just wanders. So the road used to get washed out, so we had a little difficulty getting out, but we've really been religiously stuck with it. Yeah, they used to always say, oh, the Hermitage is here again, as usual, we didn't miss out. Whereas some people that have a sprinkle of rain and no, I'm not going today.
But we did have an added incentive to come to the market. I mean, you can't cook all week and then say Friday night, oh God, it's raining, let's not go. You can't stand there and feed 250 loaves of bread to your cows.
And then there was the incident of the snake in the hall. That was a good one, because there was a young lady was standing under one of these fig trees here. She had her jeans on with pockets that stuck out, and she felt something sort of swish, but she thought it was just a leaf or something. She came over to our stall to buy a pineapple juice. She put her hand into her pocket to get her 20 cents, and she pulled out a tree snake. She put the snake right in front of me, and I screamed, she screamed, and the hall went whoosh. John, who sold sausage rolls, he cornered it and caught it, and everybody came in. There was handbags, shopping, everything was just left as they got out of that hall as quickly as possible. That was a very good memory. We all laughed in hindsight, but we were all standing on the table at the time.
Oh, my earliest memory of the market was standing over the road under the tree, waiting to be accepted into the market, to stand with your product and wait for Tony Wall was the manager at that stage, and he would approve you or not. So I actually waited 2 years to get in. Every Saturday I would stand there with my pottery. It was quite hard to get into the market, and with a local postcode, that's the only way you could get in. No, I was determined to get in. The beauty of the market, for me, I could raise my children there and be a stay-at-home mum type thing, but still working. And that's the greatness of the market for women, because they could have a career plus have children. Marie, my ceramic friend, she was there. We had, her baby was in a jolly jumper and mine was in the pram, and we'd build extensions onto our tents to house the porta cot.
Yeah, so we're basically where the food stalls are now. I was in there. But then, and then as it expanded a bit, then I went over to under the big old Moreton Bay fig tree where I still am. And that rock wall behind me, where I sit now, is where I used to put my baby capsule when my son was born. Yeah, and he's 28 years old now.
We used to have a little humpy out the back. We'd make a little canvas tent. Sometimes it was too hot, sometimes it got washed away and they got all wet. And then we ended up having an old Bedford bus, and we used to hook the trailer on the back of that, and that became our market wagon. We'd drop the trailer and unload the stall and park the bus down the back so the kids could play in the bus and have all their toys and everything set up there. And their friends used to join them too, the other market kids. So they had their little market community down the back.
Unless they were asleep underneath the table, I didn't know where they were, and I didn't have to worry about them. It was just a nice, easy, friendly environment. Children were probably 4 and 5, and now I have grandchildren at market. One of them's now working with us, and she's 13. That's a grandchild, so 3 generations in the shop altogether.
Also, you've got to think of the factor too, like if you were working on Saturday, which I often did, the kids really had to go to the market, and probably they were lucky that my mum and dad being the market manager, and mum had a stall there from day dot. She was like basically the first stall holder on the CWA veranda.
Yeah, I can't believe it myself that I've been there 39 years. In 1983, I was given a position on the front veranda of the CWA hall to share with George and Meg Howie. The CWA was a hive of activity where exotic food, homemade pastries and sausage rolls, fruit, drinks and the first ice cream making machine, that was with Lionel and Muriel Willett, were enjoyed on crockery plates and glasses, which were collected on a traymobile by Joe Wagner for washing in the kitchen. Tea, coffee, sandwiches and scones were made in the kitchen and served by Lindy, who is still at the market today, with Glenda and Truce Pell, who ran the kitchen. The aroma and laughter invited all inside, with the queue going down the stairs onto the front pathway. The CWA Hall has always been the heart of the market.
We started in the kitchen of the CWA, but the council moved in and decided that every stall needed its own sanitation. It needed its own refrigeration and things like that. Well, the CWA did not want their hall changed at all. So it was decided that we had to move out of the CWA, which was a very sad day. We moved into the railway building, and then slowly that area down there, known as the Corral, in front of the old railway building, started to get stalls. And all the other foodies were required to get a caravan.
Yeah, we had food vans. Our profit ratio just went down, and we said we've got to either leave or find a new product. And a lot of people in the market, they whinge, but you have to look at what you sell, and if it doesn't sell, either sell something different or leave.
The market was so much smaller. You knew everybody well. In my store, we had really funky stuff. So I would be hysterical. I had $900 and think, shit, this is just wow, you know. And all of the people beside me had done it as well too. And we couldn't wait to pack up and get over there to the hotel to have a dance and a drink and, you know, and sometimes we used to meet in the week to go to a waterhole. You know, we were very close. But see, as it became more diverse, it became more serious, and it wasn't just a party fun time.
There would have been a couple of hundred stalls by then. Expo 88 was on in Brisbane. That's where a lot of the people that moved from the Melbourne markets up here. I remember when I first started under the fig trees up on the footpath in the main street, I had to move because the council basically told all the stalls along the top they had to go, that they were shutting down the top section on the footpath because they said we were killing the fig trees, and they are historic trees planted in memory of some of the First World War soldiers that had died. And when I found out that the Historical Society had purchased the land from the state government, the old railway yard, I thought, this is good security, I'll go down there because they own it. The railway tracks still went through there, so we were setting up over the top of the actual railway lines and trying not to trip over them. And so eventually they paved it, and the Bergman brothers were putting up structures for us so we didn't have to set up our own tents. So it was improving all the time.
From there the market changed and became more of a tourist type thing. Tourists from down south started coming up, and international started showing up and going, oh my God, look at this.
People wouldn't have believed how much stuff we could sell in one market. It was very full on. And then, you know, Sunday you'd say, I'm finished, you know. But then Monday you'd come up again and off you go again. It was really quite addictive, I suppose, in a way.
The Itrabutros, you'd get the Prime Ministers, and you'd get a lot of people from down south, a lot of money. They would be here. They were fantastic because they knew how to spend, and they didn't mind spending because markets, nobody really had a market like Eumundi.
I remember a leather worker about 3 stalls from me, Bruce Cull. He used to plait kangaroo belts and stock whips, and he kept going on how Eumundi's going to become a market town. At that stage it was just us. He go, oh, you mark my words, one day the whole town will turn into a market. And I didn't quite understand what he meant, but then as the other markets started up, the Wednesday market, Louis market around the park, market around the newsagents, the pavilion markets, I could see what he meant. The whole town was turning into one big market. So yeah, he did predict it.
When budget airlines came in, it became cheap to come to the Sunshine Coast, and then all the families started coming. which is fantastic, but they just don't have the same amount of capital that they can blow at a market. I think it's a bit of everybody now. These days, a lot of Brisbane people love them. They will come up. Oh, of course, holiday times. We wait for holidays. We pray for holidays, Easter and Christmas. That's what keeps us going.
For me, the market's changed when they built the sheds down the back. Still get, say, 5,000 people coming to the market, but there were twice as many places to spend your money. We all struggled at that point and had to get jobs. Then they brought in the make it, bake it, sow it, grow it ethos. I can say to people when they come to my stall, if you really like my product and you want something handmade, this whole row down here, we all do our own product. So, and they go, oh, thank you so much for letting me know. That's what we want. That's why we want to be here. That's what we've come for.
I don't mind, now we've got all the different markets out there that blend into one, because I feel like it makes my product look even better. People get a bit offended by the imported products, but it still brings that variety in. And so therefore you're going to pull more customers, which we do. Some days you'll get 10,000 people through there in one day. What retail outlet gets that unless you're in a huge shopping centre, which you wouldn't want to be?
What do you think the success is of the market? How has it got to be 40 years of age?
I think it's to do with the old timers. Just keep going. Strong people who enjoy the job, enjoy the products they're making, really believe in the market and the community.
Diversity, having such a range of craftspeople and traders, whether they be growers or sowers, makers in the one area. It's like a market for all things Australian. And
it definitely has to be product, what we have. And you really can't buy that quality product, I would say, anywhere in Australia and probably in the world.
I think it'll keep going because it's a tourist focal point. If you're going to the Sunshine Coast, you normally call in to Eumundi Market.
The longevity is due to the care and understanding from the market executive who make it possible for creators to make a sustainable living and a lifestyle in our unique village, and the strength from the Eumundi Historical Society who facilitates giving back to the community on a yearly basis. I do feel that's a part of the longevity of the market, is because we're going there for the experience like the visitor is.
And I love the lifestyle, the people, the whole market persona. I think I'd like to do a shop or anything like that. I prefer the atmosphere of the market. The casual, the whole setup, the colours, the people, amazing. We've got the music just down from us, and last weekend they had the guys with the drums going through and the girls dancing, with their fishnet stockings and their feathers. It was beautiful.
It's a great day out. My relatives and things love coming to Eumundi Market. They get all their Christmas presents here because it's something unique. There's lots of coffee stops. You can stop and chat, and it's, goes for so many hours. You can spend all morning here till the afternoon, and they just love it. Fantastic what it's come from. Small beginnings, now what it is just brilliant. Really brilliant, and it's been so wonderful to be part of it for those many years.
Yeah, I'm actually quite proud of the fact that I've been there that long, and I'm an original, and I tend to hear myself telling people, I think, God, that sounds like skiting, but I am proud that I've hung in there and was able to develop products and change and still enjoying it all, so why not be proud? Put everything into it. Market was everything for me. It's my life.
Eumundi Historical Association thanks those who shared their recollections for the 40th anniversary of the original Eumundi Markets. This project was supported by a heritage grant from the Sunshine Coast Council, recorded by Bruce Hamilton, interviews and editing by Leo Wiles.